shadows on the ground. The night sky over the small town of Ravelwood was unusually dark, with clouds stretched like bruises across the moon. A faint wind whispered through the trees, carrying the smell of damp soil and something faintly metallic. The local cricket ground, normally alive with the laughter of children and the steady rhythm of bats striking balls, stood oddly silent. Tonight, only one man lingered there. His name was Arjun. Cricket was his passion, his escape, his only true joy. He had played since childhood, and the ground had become a second home. But lately, something had changed. His teammates had stopped practicing here after dusk. They whispered about strange noises, shadows moving near the pavilion, and voices that seemed to echo when no one else was around. Arjun laughed it off. Just old stories. He would say, "The ground is ours, not theirs." That evening, he had stayed behind after the others left, determined to practice his shots under the faint light of the half-working floodlights. His bat felt heavy in his hands, yet comforting, as if it were an extension of his body. He tossed the ball into the air and struck it across the empty pitch. The sound cracked against the silence and echoed unnaturally, as though the night swallowed it and threw it back. When he bent to pick up the ball again, he froze. There were footprints in the dirt beside him. Large, uneven, as if someone had dragged their feet across the ground. But he was alone. His teammates had left an hour ago. Arjun looked around. The stands were empty, the pavilion doors shut, and the trees beyond the boundary stood still, their branches motionless in the heavy air. Shaking his head, he laughed nervously. "My mind's playing tricks." But as he continued to practice, he felt it again, that prickling sensation at the back of his neck, the sense of being watched. Every time he swung, the ball seemed to land farther than it should, rolling into the thick shadows of the edges of the field. And every time he retrieved it, he swore he saw movement. A figure, perhaps, a blur of white, a glint of red eyes. At first, he ignored it, but then came the sound. A slow clap. Clap, clap, clap. The echo drifted across the ground, deliberate and mocking. Arjun spun around, gripping his bat tightly. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice carrying into the empty night. No reply, only silence. Then the faint creak of the scoreboard. Its rusted frame shifted, though there was no wind strong enough to move it. The number plates rattled against each other as if unseen hands were playing with the scores. Arjun's pulse quickened. He forced a shaky laugh, but his throat was dry. The ball rolled again to the far corner of the ground, near the old pavilion. This time, Arjun hesitated. That building had always unsettled him. Its paint was peeling, its roof sagging, and the stories about it were endless. Players who had seen shadows in its windows heard knocks from inside when it was locked. Some even claimed to have seen a figure staring from the upstairs balcony, even though the second floor had collapsed years ago. Yet, his ball had rolled there, and Arjun couldn't leave without it. He walked slowly, his spikes crunching on the dry earth. The closer he came, the colder the air grew. It was subtle at first, then undeniable. the temperature dropping until his breath clouded in front of him. His fingers tightened around the bat, holding it like a weapon. The bull sat just at the foot of the pavilion steps. Arjun bent to pick it up, and that was when he saw it. A shadow moved inside. It wasn't quick. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was deliberate. A tall, human-shaped silhouette gliding past a broken window. Arjun stumbled back, his chest tightening. Then came the whisper, "Play with me." The voice was low, hoarse, as though it had been buried for years and only now forced itself free. Arjun dropped the ball. His bat trembled in his grip. He wanted to run, but his legs locked. He could only stare at the darkened window where the shadow had vanished. And then, the door of the pavilion creaked open. The last innings. The door of the pavilion swung open with a slow groan, as though pushed by invisible hands. Darkness spilled out like ink, swallowing the faint light from the broken floodlights. Arjun's breath caught in his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to run, yet something stronger, curiosity, pride, maybe even defiance, held him there. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. The silence answered him. Then, faintly, came the sound of a ball bouncing on wood. Thud, 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 like a bowler testing his run-up. The sound came from inside the pavilion. Each bounce was deliberate, echoing unnaturally in the hollow night. Arjun's mouth went dry. He gripped the bat tighter and took a cautious step forward. "Enough games. Come out." No one came, but the sound of the bouncing ball grew louder, faster, thud, 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 until it felt like the whole ground vibrated with it. Then, silence. The quiet was worse than the noise. Arjun backed away, his eyes locked on the open door. He thought about leaving, but his body refused to turn. And then a figure appeared. It stepped out of the pavilion, slow and deliberate, carrying a cricket ball in one pale hand. It was tall, gaunt, dressed in torn cricket white stained with dirt and something darker, something that looked like dried blood. Its face was a blur, shadow where features should have been, but its eyes glowed faintly red, burning holes through the night. Arjun's knees buckled. He stumbled backward, raising the bat instinctively. "Stay back." The figure tilted its head, almost curiously, and then tossed the ball at him. Arjun ducked, the ball bouncing past him. But when it hit the ground, it didn't roll away. Instead, it cracked open like a rotten fruit, spilling not leather and cork, but thick black ooze that seeped into the date. The smell hit him immediately, rancid, metallic, the stench of death. Arjun gagged. "God!" When he looked up again, the figure was gone. He spun in panic, searching the ground. The stands loomed in silence, the shadows unmoving. For a moment, he thought he was safe. Maybe his mind had imagined it. Maybe. Clap, clap, clap. The sound came from directly behind him. Arjun whirled around. The figure was there, inches away. Its face was still featureless, but now its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, a grin that seemed carved into the darkness itself. And from that mouth came the whisper, "Your turn to bat." It lunged. Arjun swung the bat wildly, striking nothing but air. His legs finally obeyed him, and he bolted across the pitch, his spikes scraping the ground. The floodlights flickered violently as he ran, casting broken shadows across the field. Every step felt heavier, like the ground itself wanted to drag him down. He didn't dare look back, but the sound followed him, not footsteps, but the unmistakable thwack of bat on ball, echoing behind him as though invisible players had joined the game. When he reached the center of the pitch, he stopped, gasping for breath. That was when he realized he wasn't alone. Figures surrounded him, 11 of them, dressed in the same torn whites, their faces hidden, their bodies stiff. They stood like a cricket team, spread across the field in perfect positions. But they weren't alive. Their movements were jerky, puppet-like, their heads twitching unnaturally, and all of them were staring at him. Arjun backed away, his heart pounding in his chest. This isn't real. One of the figures stepped forward. Its head snapped sideways with a sickening crack. Then it spoke, its voice layered, echoing, as if many mouths spoke at once. "We never left the pitch. Neither will you." Arjun screamed and swung his bat at the nearest one. The wood connected with its shoulder, shattering it into fragments of dust and ash. But the others didn't flinch. Instead, they closed in, their shadows stretching unnaturally across the field, reaching for him like claws. He turned and ran toward the exit gate, but the ground shifted beneath him. The grass turned dark, wet, sucking at his shoes. He stumbled, falling to his knees. When he looked down, the pitch wasn't earth anymore. It was a sea of faces, pale, screaming faces pressing up from beneath the soil, mouths open in endless agony. Hands clawed at his legs, pulling him down. "No! Let go!" Arjun cried, thrashing desperately. He swung the bat, but it felt heavier now, weaker. The more he fought, the deeper he sank. The 11 figures stood in a circle, watching silently. Then, slowly, they raised their arms in unison, as though signaling the end of an innings. The captain, the faceless figure who had first appeared, stepped closer. It crouched down, staring at him with those glowing eyes. Its mouth opened again, impossibly wide, and the whisper came one last time. "Game over." The earth swallowed him whole. When the sun rose the next morning, the cricket ground looked ordinary again. The grass glistened with dew, the pitch stood dry and cracked, and the pavilion sat in its eternal silence. But the bat lay in the center of the field, broken clean in half. And on the scoreboard, though no one had touched it, the numbers had changed. 1 wicket, the first of many.